The topic is the AFROTC at Tennessee State University. Of course, we have with us Major Moore and Cadet Johnson talking about the AFROTC program at Tennessee State University. And of course, Major Moore, let's start with you by having you to give our audience some information about the AFROTC program itself, not only at Tennessee State University, but what is the national government attempting to do with this AFROTC program, and how does that program fit into some of the other service kinds of related programs? Let's talk about it from that perspective.
Thank you. Air Force ROTC is one of 3 commissioning sources that we have for officers. We also have the United States Air Force Academy as well as Officer Training School. But ROTC accounts for 42% of our commissioned officers in the Air Force, so we are very dependent on having a lot of students enter our program. Typically, in the past few years, we have commissioned about 2,200 officers a year through Air Force ROTC. So they are depending on us to have a lot of students. TSU Air Force ROTC has been around since 1951, and we really pride ourselves on diversity. We have 14 different universities that come to TSU in the Middle Tennessee State area every week. Every Wednesday they have ROTC. We have 4 classes. Typically people start as a freshman, and their first class is the U.S. Air Force Today, where they learn generalities about the Air Force, but also learn about communications. So even if they decide not to stay with our program, they have bettered themselves in some way. Our second year, we study air power history. And in between the sophomore and junior year, our cadets go to a field training encampment for 4 weeks, which is our officer equivalent to basic training. And they learn leadership skills. It's very stressful. It's very physical fitness oriented, but it's teamwork oriented too. And this is where our students make a crossover into the leadership of our cadet corps. Our junior year, our students learn leadership and management, as I stated earlier, and the seniors learn national security affairs and preparation for active duty. But they don't just have an academic class, they also have leadership lab, and that's the second part of their training. Leadership lab is run by the cadets. The cadre, the officers, we do not teach it. We mentor the students to make sure they're teaching it correctly, but the juniors and seniors actually teach the freshmen and sophomores. So Cadet Johnson and her crew, they make sure that the new students are learning to get in good shape, learning how to handle leadership situations, and learning to march. Very basic things, but they didn't know how to do them when they're freshmen, but now they can teach them. A neat thing, several neat things you get out of ROTC. One thing, you have a job when you graduate, which in today's job market can be very scary. It's nice to be a senior knowing you don't have to go to job interviews and that you have a job. Another great benefit is our scholarship opportunity. And at Tennessee State University, we have a historically black college or university, HBCU scholarship, that we give out. And we have many students eligible, and we pick from the students they need to pass certain prerequisites, such as the Air Force Officer Qualifying Test, a physical fitness test, a physical, and have a certain GPA. Once they meet all those requirements, we are able to put them on scholarship, which means they will go into the Air Force upon graduation, just like Cadet Johnson. Their tuition is paid for, whether they're in-state or out-of-state. They get a monthly stipend, which increases every year throughout the program. By the time they're seniors, their monthly stipend is $400 a month, and they get $510 a year for books. So it's a very lucrative scholarship, and we think we are able to help students, Caucasian as well as African American. You just have to be a student at TSU or Fisk. We're able to help people who might not otherwise be able to go to college. So we've enjoyed working with all sorts of different students, and we think our program represents the real Air Force, because we don't just have Caucasians, we don't just have African Americans, we have people from every different walk of life and financial status, and I think the cadets get a lot out of that in their leadership training.
Very good. And you know, Cadet Johnson, she mentioned leadership training.
Yes, sir.
What are some of the things that you went through in terms of the first 3 years that you were involved in this, in terms of leading toward you being the highest ranking cadet in the attachment? I mean, what were some of the things that were important to you and impressed upon you at that time?
One thing that's very important, I always stress towards my AS100s and 200s who are freshmen and sophomores are, always step out and take the lead. And that's the biggest thing is that we put you through as your freshman and sophomore year. You're put into a flight with other people that you do not know. Probably they don't go to your schools. They're from 13 or 14 other different schools. And you put into a flight. And one thing you have to learn to do is teamwork. You are not an individual. That's the biggest thing I stress. You're not an individual. You have as much teamwork as possible. You obtain all that teamwork as possible. And what you do is, as POC, as myself, as a senior, I'm the cadet wing commander. I have a staff of people who actually, like my squadron commanders and flight commanders, who actually train those GMC, the AS-100s and 200s. They train them how to march, the customs and courtesies, and everything, every single thing that they have to make sure they know in the Air Force of how to actually march to drilling and etc. And one thing we always try to stress to the AS-100s that if you want to be in my place, you have to make sure you participate. You have to make sure that you stand out in the group. You have to make sure that you get along with everybody, not a certain number of people, but the whole group as a whole, because we are a family. And during that, between their sophomore and junior year, they go to field training, in which, as Major Moore has actually said, was that you go to a 46-week field training camp, either in Texas, Florida, or South Dakota, and you go through a vigorous training in which you're put out in that leadership position so you can lead 30 people that's in your flight if you don't know, that you really do not know. But in each field training, it's 450 cadets, but you actually put into a flight of 30 cadets, and you lead them, and you run, do PT in the morning, and you do everything that actually get yourself prepared to be an officer in the United States Air Force. After you have completed field training, you come back as a POC, which is myself, professional officer candidate. And we lead the detachment. We teach those under us, and we try to do our best to make sure that the GMC are prepared for field training. And and as myself, I became the wing commander by making sure that I do my best, make sure that I stand out, make sure that I help those under me, make sure I actually ask for help. I mean, you have to be that kind of person that if you want to be the best, you have to make sure that you have to work your hardest to actually obtain that greatness.
And of course, Major Moore, all of this is done under the auspices or under the eye of people like yourself who are watching from a professional soldier's point of view, trying to determine whether or not these individuals have the characteristics that are necessary to lead others. Would that be a fair statement in reference to what she said?
Yes, we try to use our experience that we've had in the Air Force to teach our cadets. We have 4 officers and 2 enlisted members, and we all have varied careers. Not all of us have been through ROTC. One of our staff members, Major Moore, went to officer training school. So he's had a different perspective. So we use our experiences to make sure the cadets are treating each other right. We value ethics, core values, integrity. Our students must have integrity first.
Very good. And of course, let us make preparations for the second commercial break, and we'll be back to talk about some other aspects of the service. We'll be back with our audience following this very short commercial break. We're talking to